Well, welcome tonight. Get the camera back. We want to remember the prayer requests that we've turned in and we've talked about here just a few minutes ago. And also, just to let you know, next week we're not going to have, since Thanksgiving is right after, we're not going to have Wednesday night service. Sunday service is fine. We'll be here Sunday normally, I would say. So I think we still will. I'll have something ready if Brother Epperson doesn't, but we'll go ahead and get started tonight in the lesson. Picked up on Exodus 16. Last week we missed it because of the storm, but we'll go ahead and go over it this week. It's manna for the children of Israel. Do you want to read, Iris, verses 1? Do you have it? This first one's fine.
And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt.
This is after the last time they were murmuring and they got the sweet water. Okay, they were taken to a place where they didn't have any good water, and the Mara, and they threw the tree in and it becomes sweet and they drank, and then they went another journey and found a lot of good water and a lot of shade for a while. And that picks up here from where it was. There are 12 wells, it says, and 70 palm trees. They encamped there by the water. And then it picked right up and said, and they took their journey from Elim, which is where they were, and continued, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai. Let me see which one it is. Okay, it says Z. Actually, it's pronounced Zin, Z-I-N. If you look on the Bible, it's really not the wilderness of sin, although that's what a lot of them label it. But it has a lot to do, the lesson says it has a lot to do with their children of Israel being sinful in that sinful nature. But they went on a journey. We don't know approximately how far that was, but it does give us that they arrived there on the 15th day of the second month. And if you go back at the first, they started out on the 15th day of the first month. So it's been a month. It's been 30 days since they left Egypt. And they've arrived at this place. Sinai. It's a mountain, and it's supposedly where Moses, in the area, and I may get this wrong, but I think it's in the area where Moses got the revelation from God to come over to the Egypt and get his people. And it's also, I think, the same place, or very close to the same place, where Abraham was about to sacrifice Isaac. If you go back, I believe it's the same Sinai.
Wasn't there?
I'm sorry?
There's only one Sinai?
Well, yes, but where that location is actually
you know what Sinai is.
in, yeah, there's several mountains there, and different times they call it different things. You know, what was today, if you go up into Alaska, they call it Denali, the mountain. But it had a name before.
What was?
Mount
Denali.
McKinley.
McKinley.
It was renamed to Denali. So, see, names change, the same mountain, because of time, people want to change it. McKinley was the president, one of the presidents, I think, that bought it in that particular time. So they named it after. Well, a little later on, just not too many years ago, they renamed it just to Denali, because that's the indigenous people's name for it, I think. That's what they said. So it does change. We don't know exactly, and after, this many years, it could have changed many times for us. But they think that's where it's at. And if you go back to the map that we gave you before, and there's still a couple back on the back, you can kind of see where Sinai is shown. It goes up a little bit, north and up, east. So it says that this wilderness, and you're basically in a desert out there, and you go from oases to oases, okay, one to another, and in between it's just nothing. So that's why they call them wildernesses. There's just not much of nothing there. Here it says, in the original text, the wilderness of sin has nothing to do with sin. It's actually should be translated wilderness of Zin, Z-I-N, in the English. Okay, verse 2 and 3, you want to read that for us, Bertha?
And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we set by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us but forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then the whole congregation.
No, that's okay. Just the 3 is fine. We'll wait. That's 2 and 3. That's all. We'll go into the next one. Now what they did is, it's been 30 days. They took provisions with them when they left Egypt. Well, those are starting to run out. Some of their foods and some of their flatbread that they brought, the unleavened bread and whatever else. Now they still had a lot of cattle. They had a lot of meat that they could have had. But here again, you got to remember, it's almost 2 million people that's there. It's a lot of people that they have to feed. But it does say the whole congregation murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Now, who are actually they murmuring against?
Satan, actually.
Well, actually, it's God. Because they're murmuring because Moses and Aaron was led by God to tell them to go here. And they've been following the pillar of fire and the cloud in the daytime, pillar of cloud in the day, and trying and going along what God has told them. And it'll say that in just a minute. But they're not even hungry. I mean, they may be hungry, but they're not starving. They've been 30 days, but they've had food. But it's the thought that we're out here in the middle of the desert and wilderness place, and we don't have anything to eat. We're running out of food. We're going to die out here.
Well, it's kind of like when one person says something to the other, well, what do you think about us not getting any food?
That's right.
What do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
And the next one says, well, I agree with you. No, they shouldn't have done that.
It just kind of starts rolling on, the one after another. It does.
It's easy to find faults.
It is. So they said, it's easier. Why didn't we stay back in Egypt? We had all the food we could eat and everything. They don't remember that they were getting beaten every day and they had to work hard every day. And all they could remember is they was getting food. Well, I'm sure that food was dying off after all the crops started failing when all the plagues come through and all. They don't remember that. But what they remember is we had plenty to eat, and we were just fat and sassy down there in Egypt, and these two led us astray. They led us out of there. And it basically said, you brought us out here to kill the whole assembly with hunger. Boy, you talk about overemphasis. Their imagination getting away from them. That's just, crazy. Human nature can never be reduced to a more abject state in this world than that in which the body is enthralled by political slavery. And that's what this was, and that's kind of what it is today. The soul debased by the influence of sin. These poor Hebrews were both slaves and sinners, and were therefore capable of the meanest and most disgraceful acts. They were slaves, and they were treated that way by the Egyptians, and they'd done that for 400 years, so they thought that that was fine. The way they were being treated, and they treated everybody else that way. Well, they just, something's not right, we're going to complain about it. Darling, you want to read 4 and 5?
Then the Lord said unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
Now look, it says the Lord spoke to Moses. So here again, he's hearing what the people, he knows what's going on. And Moses probably took it to him and said, but whatever. The Lord told him, he said, well, this is what we're going to do. You've already forgotten all the plagues. You've already forgotten the crossing of the Red Sea. You've already forgotten the pool of Marah. And you've already forgotten the 12 wells and the 70 palm trees. But I'm not going to punish you. I'm going to make it rain bread.
Is that the same as that manna?
Yeah.
And we'll get into that in just a second.
Okay.
Just on 11.
It says, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. This was a remarkable promise. Have you ever seen it rain bread? No, nobody has. Well, not recently. Yet God promised that he would provide for Israel in this way. Now, murmuring Israelites called this bread from heaven manna. But you won't ever find it in the Scriptures. The Scriptures calls it manna. They call it bread from heaven. One time, or more than one time, it's also called in Psalms angels' food.
So we get the angel food.
Okay? So, that was one interesting thought that everybody always calls it manna. No, it wasn't. It's the murmuring Israelites. Because what does manna mean? No, it don't. It means, what is it?
Oh.
They don't know what it is. We'll read more about that in just a minute. But God tells them, okay, I'm going to give them this, but I'm going to put them to a little test. They're going to gather every day for 5 days, and then the 6th day they're going to gather twice as much, because this is going to be the Sabbath as the next day, and they're not going to gather on the Sabbath. This is the first time that we've seen the Sabbath mentioned in the Old Testament, in this concept. Now, we know about 7 days of the week. God created the 7 days a week, and he rested on the 7th day. Now it's being called the Sabbath, okay? So this is where we get it from, and then go a little further, and it gets into all the rules and all this, but that's where it comes from, that this is going to be on the Sabbath. And he's going to test them for that. He's going to say, okay, you don't remember what it is. I'm going to give you food, but I'm not going to throw it into your mouth. I'm going to make you go out and get it. And there's going to be a few rules to go out and get it. So, and that's what he says. Exodus 16, 6 through 8. Janet, you want to read those?
And Moses and Aaron said unto the children of Israel, At even then you shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. And in the morning then you shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that you murmur against us? And Moses said, This shall be, when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord.
Okay. God went and talked to Moses and told him, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm not sure if Aaron was there or not, but here it tells him Moses and Aaron talked. Here again, Aaron being his spokesperson, he told Aaron what to say, and then Aaron told the people. They said unto all the children, when it comes dinner time, at evening, you're going to know that the Lord brought you out of the land of Egypt. In the morning you're going to see the glory of the Lord, for he heareth your murmurings. How many times does he use murmurings in there? I think he's driving a point home. You're murmuring. I'm going to put a rest to your murmuring. Well, it would be nice if they would, but they don't. They keep on murmuring. They'll murmur, they quit for a while, but then they don't. They keep murmuring a little later on.
Funny, it's kind of funny how God politely says, shut up.
And how would you feel after all these things that happened? You'd provided for them 10 plagues,
That's what I said.
you know, this miracle of crossing the Red Sea, taking care of all the Egyptians, you know, giving you water when there's no water there, both for the sweet water and then for the, later on, the wells. I'd be mad. I mean, I'd like, you stupid little, you're not recognizing anything that I'm doing for you. You forget so quick. That's kind of human nature. But that's not what God did. He said, okay, I'll make it where you can't say that I'm not God. Now, you can still say it, but they can't disprove it because he's going to put it for them, for them. So it says, in the morning they would not see the glory of God as is in his enthroned radiance, but in his great loving provision. Okay, sometimes we look and we miss what we see in God. You know, you can look around and see nature, see what's there. People say, oh, I don't see it, it's been there forever. Yeah, but somebody created it. You may not believe that, but somebody created that a long time ago. That was God. And because God created that, he created all this, the intricacies that we have, the seasons that we have, all that stuff he created. That is the real display of God's glory. Okay, to see this provision that he's given to his people. He loves these people a lot. And like a patient parent, he's patient to a point. But he does tell them, okay, you're going to have to do that. Basically, he's saying, okay, I'll give it to you, but you're going to have some chores to go along with it. It says the sheer weight and gravity of his divine presence was on them. One way that God showed his glory was through this display of mercy and goodness. God didn't send them hell from heaven. He sent bread instead. Nor did he demand that they stop their complaining before they ate. Just like Jesus would later command us, God loved and fed those who acted like his enemies. So we see later on all the whole crowd that Jesus fed, the 5,000, he did it a couple times, 5,000 one time, and more, 4,000 next time. Those same people was the ones that's trying to crucify him just a few weeks later, a few months later. We see this repeated over and over in time, but this is really a real similar or a type and a shadow of Christ. So this is also explaining the complaints. Okay, and it's reassuring Moses and Aaron. They're not complaining against you. They're complaining against me, as God telling them. That they're complaining that I wanted to bring them out of Egypt. People hate change. Have I said that once during this time? They hate change. They do. People hate change no matter what it is. You don't like the weather. Oh, it's too cold now. Just 2 weeks ago it's so hot we couldn't, or 3 weeks ago, it doesn't matter. People do not like change. Okay, 9, 10, 11, and 12, if you would like, Harold.
Moses spake unto Aaron, saying unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, Come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel, speak unto them, saying, At even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God.
Okay. Now, there's a little difference here on when it says that it's talking about the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. We had the cloud, a pillar of fire at night and a cloud by day leading them. Now it's telling us the glory of the Lord appeared in that. So it's something a little more unusual than what they've seen before. It may have been similar to when it first started, when they had the Red Sea crossing, you know, the fire was standing in it, and it was dark on one side and clear on another. But here he's just re-emphasizing it to them. And it tells us that Moses heard it. He spake, the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying this. Now he's already told him, he's heard the murmurings. I'm not so sure that the people didn't hear them too. That way it's re-emphasizing to the people, you're talking about my spokesman here. You're murmuring against him, so basically you're murmuring against me. And sometimes, one of the things that I don't like, is when you want to discipline somebody in a job or in whatever, the family, you know, if you had a whole bunch of kids, just line them all up and whoop them all. You know, that's kind of what happens sometimes. I don't care who did it, who started it, who did it, you know, we're just going to punish all of them. Well, that's a little bit the way this is. But since it was a whole congregation murmuring, they deserved it. And that's what he's trying to tell them, that you're not murmuring against my prophet, against, you know, Moses. You're murmuring against me. And he told them before, but now he's telling them again, okay, you're not just going to get bread, you're going to get flesh. You're going to get some meat too. In the morning you'll get bread, in the night you'll get meat.
But you know, like you're talking about, lining everybody up and everybody gonna get whooped. You know who is the guilty party.
Yeah.
And the congregation that wasn't complaining knew who the culprits was that was bringing that down and all that. So, you know.
We would get, a lot of times we'd get an email from the boss and you know, it's like, why don't you just send it to that person? Yeah. Instead of sending it to everybody in your group. Because we all know, you know, if you don't, you're not a very good boss. But anyway, that's the way it kind of goes. You don't want to, quote, hurt somebody's feelings, so you hurt everybody's feelings, it seems like. But that's, it's to re-emphasize to them again. They just seem, and I guess as it trickles down, you got Moses and Aaron, and you got the leaders, and then the people underneath that. It may have been the leaders that was murmuring. We don't know. But once that starts, like you said, it trickles all down through all the people, and they go through everything. So it has to stop somewhere. A little later on, we'll find it a little later on in our studies, Aaron starts getting in on it. Miriam starts getting in on it, on Moses. It can affect everybody if we're not careful. We just need to keep our focus on what we are doing for God.
You know, it talks about the glory of God in the cloud. I can't imagine what that was, but in the same sense, I can't imagine what it's going to be like, the glory of God, when we gather in heaven.
That's right.
I don't think as humans we have the capability of
We
fully
don't.
grasping that.
We don't. I'm fully confident of that. We see that here again later on in Exodus, that Moses can't look upon him. He looks at his back parts, and the people can't even look at Moses because of the glory shining off of him. We don't have a clue. They said in the funeral the other day, we don't have, maybe it's at the interment, we don't have a clue as to what heaven's going to be. Yeah, we can think, oh man, it's going to be like Disney World, or, you know, something, whatever you like. It's going to be like that. No, it's not. It's going to be better than anything you can even comprehend. And then some people be, oh, I'm going to be so bored. No, you're not. You're going to be in heaven.
I think it's going to be because God wants us to be in awe.
Oh, it is. It will be.
You know,
And
such a people will be happy.
And here, when he shows it to them, like here, it's got to be, I mean, when we've been in services where the Spirit just falls upon everybody and you're just can't move hardly for fear of getting out of the Spirit, it's that way. And I think heaven's going to be that, not a fear, but a reverence of God that whole time. It's going to be so much more than we can ever anticipate. We can try to put things on it. People supposedly have died and gone to heaven and come back and try to explain it. I don't think there's any way that us as humans can comprehend what heaven's going to be like, what it's going to be like and to see Him.
It's unexplainable.
It is. We've never been there. We don't know what it, I mean, John tried, he's been there. John sees it, he tries to write it down, and best as human words can do it, he's put it down. Streets that are lined with gold, I mean, enough gold that it's used as asphalt here in our town. I mean, that's what it is. It's just like, that's amazing but it's, you know, we just can't comprehend it. When we went over and went, many years ago now, when we went to Europe, I went to, which one was it Neuschwanstein, I think? I can't remember. One of the castles was in Germany, had so much gold on it, it was just so gaudy. I mean, everything was gold. Wow. And it's gold plated. Right. But it's just like, that's a little much. But this, you know, the way heaven's going to be, it's going to be just right. It's going to be so awesome that but we're not going to be paying attention to that.
No.
We're going to be paying attention to one thing.
Jesus.
That's right. He's going to be there, God's going to be there, and His Son's there, and the Holy Spirit's going to be there. It's going to be amazing. And we can't, I can't comprehend it. I don't know anybody
I
that
don't
can.
I don't even know if we could say that we'd actually get to walk. I mean, how huge is it anyway? How can you even say that even if you walk through straight on the streets of gold and through this place, how do you know that how huge it is or if you'll ever get to the end of it?
Well, it tells us, you know, and a little later, in Revelation, it tells us how the new heaven and the new earth, when they come in, it gives us some calculations of what it is. It's big. It's real big. So, and He tells us, you know, that He's going to prepare a place for us. And it's something that we can't even fathom. You know, the Father's preparing something for us special. And just for that place. Anyway, let's go on. Verse 13 says, And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around about the host. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, the face of the wilderness, there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. So this is what he's talking about. This is what I'm going to give you. Now it talks about here that there were quails came in at the evening, and that's for their food. Now, one of the things here, it says the quails, they migrate regularly between South Europe and Arabia across the Sinai Peninsula. Excuse me. And that's kind of where it's at. Say these are small bullet-headed birds with a strong but low flight, usually roosting on the ground or in the low bushes at nightfall. when they're exhausted at the end of the day, they'd be unable to take off again until they rested. So that would be easy for them to just go out and pick them off. That could have been, I mean, that happens today. So that could have been something that God caused to happen for them, just so they would have this meat. Because this particular time, it just did it, you know, what they're talking about here, that's kind of like when the birds migrate back and forth. Yeah, for maybe a week or two they have it, and then they're not. But God made this available for them at this particular time. Then the small round substance as fine as frost on the ground, it says. The bread from heaven came with the dew each morning. And it was some kind of a residue from the dew. It says it was small, round, and fine as frost on the ground. Therefore, it's not easy to gather. Said a lot of the Jewish history says that they actually had to sweep it up from the ground. It was so fine. It was almost like dirt, kind of like flour, if you want to say it like that, or maybe a little thicker, a little heavier than that. But it described this like coriander seed, which is like sesame seed. So it's pretty small. But they had to get it enough to where they get enough of it so that they could do something, so they could eat it. I mean, you can eat a handful of sesame seeds and it ain't going to do anything for you. But it says, Numbers 11:7 says that the color was the color bdellium, which is a pearl-like color. It was either baked or boiled. Numbers also tells us that it could be ground into millstones and beat in a mortar, cooked in pans, and made cakes of. Says it tastes like the taste of pastry prepared with oil. So it's kind of like, you know, say a donut or croissant or something like that. Here again, Jewish legends, this is not in the Bible, but Jewish legends tell them that you only had to have a certain desire for a dish, and when you ate that, it tasted like that dish. If you think, oh man, I want lasagna so bad, and it tasted like lasagna to you. Where another, it would taste like something else. Turkey and dressing, if you want to say it that way, or whatever. So, for each person, it met their need. That's what it's trying to say. Whatever hunger they had for, it met that need. It also tells us that, and this is a little different, but it said, the legend says that when God sent the manna, he first sent a north wind to sweep the floor of the desert, then a rain to wash it clean, and then the manna descended on the clean ground, and then they could sweep it up and eat it. These are all legends. We don't know for sure what it was, but it was, like I said, it's something that God provided for them. Now they do have something in the next paragraph. It tells us today, some researchers identify it with what some of the Arabs call man, M-A-N-N. That's formed when a tiny insect punctures the bark of a tamarisk tree, drinks the sap, excludes a clear liquid that solidifies as a sugary globule when it hits the ground. But when the sun comes up, it melts away. That's a lot like the manna is described. It doesn't stay all day. It's there in the morning. You've got to go. If you're hungry, you've got to go and gather it in the morning and get it. Otherwise, it's not going to be there. It says, though the bread in heaven may have been similar to this modern day man, it wasn't the same thing. The modern day man never appears in great quantities, and it doesn't last year round, and it's confined to a small geographic area. The purpose of giving the bread from heaven was not only to provide for Israel the needs, but also to teach them a lesson. They had to depend on God, didn't they? They were running out of food. That was something that's true. They still had some food, but they could see that they were not going to have it. So they had to depend on God. And God said, okay, I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to worry about it. So for the next time period, the only thing they had to do is go and gather it. Now, there's still rules that go along with the gathering. Verse 15, Bertha, you have it? Or go ahead and read it, Iris, since you have it.
15?
Uh-huh.
Oh. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, It is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, This is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat.
So the word manna actually means, what is it? They didn't know what it was. It's something they had not encountered before.
Did they cook it?
They did. It said that they could cook it, they could boil it, they could mash it into like flour, get a flour and make cakes out of it and bake it. They could do whatever they want to. You could eat it raw if you wanted to. But it was the nourishment of it, but it said to boil it or to basically bake it. So it'd be like flour. Yeah, you could eat flour. Doesn't taste very good like that, but they did. I mean, I'm sure there's some did. 16 through 19, Bertha?
Okay. This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather it every man according to his eating, and omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents. I want to say house, the tents, and the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more or some less. And when they did mit it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered little had no lack. They gathered every man according to his eating. And then Moses said, Let no man leave of it till morning.
Right. So he gave them the rules. This is what you need to do. You need to go and gather each one of them. Like I said, he didn't provide breakfast in bed for them. They had to go work. Adam and Eve, they had all the food they wanted to eat, but they had to go get it. They had to take care of the garden. They had to do things. God's going to have things for us to do in heaven. Don't know what it's going to be like, but it will be something. We're not going to be bored, like I said before. He'll have something for us to do. But here he tells us, go out and gather it, and gather an omer for each person. Now, omer is a measure, okay? On the back of your lesson, if you want to look real quick, I put a little, says biblical units and measurements. Now, this is the closest that we can guess that it is. And it varies too. Here again, from time to time. It says an omer is about 2 quarts. So that would be enough for a person. Now, in some places I read that it could be as much as a gallon. That up to a gallon. So we don't have the precise measurements, but that's what it did tell us. Go gather this amount for each person every day. And then it goes on and tells them 6 days. Now, Darla, 20, 21, yeah, 20 and 21.
Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left part of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stayed. And Moses was wroth with them, and they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating, and when the sun waxed hot, it melted.
He told them to go gather how much you need, 1 omer per person for your house. So they'd gather, they'd make it up, and then eat it all that day. Because you're going to have to do it again the next day. Well, some of them wanted to go gather more, and they did. They made it, gathered it up. After a little while the next day, it was nasty. It was stinking, and it had rotted overnight. It didn't, so they didn't do what God told them to do. They said, well, I may be hungry in the middle of the night, I go get some. That's not what he told them to do.
Some of them probably didn't trust God.
It's
to keep
exactly
sending it like he
every
said
day.
it was.
He had to he was telling them, you have to have a dependence on me, that I will give it to you each and every day, as it says.
Or they also, some of them could have been like, I'm lazy, so I'm not gonna do that, I'll do it the next day.
That's right, it could very well been too. But in either way,
On a diet.
that's what God told them to do. Well, it tells them some gathered more and some gathered less. Some people don't eat as much. Okay, so they didn't gather as much. Some people eat a lot more, and they'll eat it all up. That's whatever it is, it will fill you up. But don't have any left over for those first 5 days.
No, when she eats, you share.
So it said they gathered it every morning, according to how he's going to eat. And then when the sun came up and it was hot, here again it melted away. It wasn't there, so they couldn't get any more. It's gone. I'm going to go ahead and read. We're running a little short. 22 to 26. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. Yeah, Moses was mad back then when they started, the ones that gathered too much. All right, they came complaining to him probably, complaining again, and he told them, I told you so. Well, here he said unto them, this is that which the Lord hath said, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which you will bake today, seethe or boil that which you'll seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up in the morning as Moses bade, or did, and it didn't stink. Neither was there any worm therein. And the Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today you shall not find it in the field. 6 days you shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And what do you think some of the people did? They only gathered 1 omer because, he's done it every day for 6 days. It'll be there tomorrow. And it wasn't. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? God's starting to get a little miffed that these guys are not following directions.
I mean, it's not like it's that hard.
No, it's not. Give them something simple, and they still don't want, they don't trust. Here again, they didn't trust when it was there the first day. They gathered too much. And then they didn't gather, enough because, oh man, I did that and it was nasty the next day. I'm not going to get it. Well, then they messed up because they wasn't trusting enough
Then you go hungry
to
for
do
a
it.
day.
Well, that's right. They went hungry. So the people rested on the 7th day. Verse 31. And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna. Okay? Israelites did, not God. And it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord commandeth. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness, when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt. And Moses said unto Aaron, take a pot, put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept for your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years, until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came into the borders of the land of Canaan. Now, an omer is the 10th part of an ephah. And here again, you can go back and look in the ephah. So it's 20 quarts, I guess. It's the 10th part of an ephah.
So after 40 years, they probably figured out what they were supposed to.
I hope so. After about a week, they should have figured that out. But, you know, some people it takes a lot longer than others. Well, you had people live and die, you know, in between that time and were born. So they had to learn in that 40 years where they were going through. But he wanted to be a memorial. So they went and put an omer of it in a vessel. And it says they put it before the testimony. Well, later on, that's called the tabernacle. They put it in the ark. Okay, that. Now, later on, after that, the only thing left in the ark was the Ten Commandments. We see several things are placed in the ark when the ark is built. Later on, when Moses, when they go into the land of Canaan, that's a lot further on. Well, Moses builds the ark before they go in there. They start carrying it around. But after that, when David starts building it, we see that there's not as much in there. Okay, it's just the Ten Commandments that's left. Any questions? It says Jesus is the bread of heaven, and we have to receive him like Israel received the manna. We have to be aware of our need, have to be hungry. Each for himself, family by family, every day, humbly, perhaps on our knees, with gratitude, knowing we don't deserve it, eating it, taking the gift inside to our innermost being. So it's very similar. That's what God is teaching them, how to serve him. But they're not listening. Doesn't seem like. So in 2 weeks we will move forward. Not next week, but the week after we'll start on Exodus 17. Y'all have a good week.
Don't turn off yet, we gotta say hello to Brother Bill.
Oh, well, I already turned it off.
Hi, Brother Bill.